Today's practice gears a little more towards the beginner student, someone who may be a little less familiar with our terms and the poses. I'll be spending more time on verbal cues and the things you really want to be feeling and experiencing in your body as we move from pose to pose. Now, if you are a bit of a seasoned yogi, it is nice for a refresher. I think we get a little complacent visiting the poses that we've done so frequently, so this could be helpful for you too. I will be using a set of yoga blocks, so if you don't have them, get creative in your house finding books or shoe boxes that you can use in place. I hope this serves as a nice introduction for you to the world of yoga, and if you are seasoned, welcome back to the foundation. Let's enjoy our practice. Meet me seated on the floor. Now I know that may be a little easier said than done. For some of us, sitting cross-legged is not comfortable, especially if you notice your knees are lifting. We need to do one of two things. Extend your legs long or prop your hips up on some cushions or your blocks so that we can keep a nice rise up and out of the pelvis. You want to make sure that you're comfortable or else you're never going to focus on anything else but being so uncomfortable. We want to be able to relax into our bodies. Relax the shoulders. Try to sit nice and tall, lengthening your spine. Palms can face the ceiling, and I want you to close your eyes. Not getting too fancy with our breath today. I just want you to focus on taking that next breath in, nice and slow. And then feel the exhale. I want you to feel on the breath in that there's this sense of rising, lifting from the back of the crown. And on the exhale, hold on to that height, but feel yourself sinking through the sit bones into the floor. Almost as if this breath action is beginning to lengthen you in opposite directions, getting longer and taller as you inhale, and then sinking deeper into the ground as you exhale. The breath should be soft and gentle, so we're not forcing the breath in. And try breathing through the nose on the inhale and the exhale. One of the most important parts of our practice is breathing, and it's easier said than done. We're going to add on to this. I want you to focus on breathing in and not just coming upward with the breath, but can you push outward as well? So I want you to feel this sense of expanding through the lungs from the sides, the back and the front. Notice how different this breath might be from our normal breathing and how much breath capacity we really have inside us. Give it one more round. We've got an upward and outward action as we breathe in. And that sinking sensation as you exhale. Bring your hands to heart center with a humble bow forward. This practice is not for us to judge ourselves or how we perform, but to merely feel and experience the practice as it unfolds in our body. Open your eyes nice and slow. We're going to get started in a table position. So of course, pad your knees if you need to. Maybe have a towel nearby or a blanket. When you sit up for your table position, you want to make sure that your knees are underneath your hips and your hands are underneath your shoulders. Lots of times I see this, right? So we want to make sure we're stacked up nicely. Beginning with a cat-cow. Drop the belly, lift the tailbone. And on the exhale, curl the tailbone under, rounding into a cat back. I just want you to take a couple rounds here, and as we continue our rhythm, I'll add on different things you should be looking for. There's an organic movement here with the breath. So as you inhale is when you want the belly to drop and the tailbone to lift. And as you exhale, think of that compressive sensation in the core. Draw the navel in. So we move on the breath. Slowly letting go through the head here so the head can totally relax and hang as you come into your cat back. And as you inhale, lift and open up. Focus on a slight lift of the chin to open up through the throat. And now pay attention to your hands. We can go deeper into this expression. As you come into your cat back, I want you to pause and notice the difference between holding your position and really pushing the ground away to separate further into your shoulder blades. There's a difference. Same thing as you come down into your cow pose, I want you to hold here. Now notice the difference between holding the pose and then pressing into the floor with your hands, and try to drag your hands towards your knees to feel a greater opening in the chest. Take a couple more rounds incorporating all of those things. The breathing, pressing and the pulling of the hands. We pull in cow, we press in cat. Come back to a neutral spine. Tuck the toes and just hover your knees really low. Widen the knees to the edges of your mat. Toes will touch as you hinge back. This is going to bring you into your child's pose. You want your hips to your heels. Arms can extend out in front, or you can stack your fists one on top of the other to support the forehead. Just letting the work go. Close your eyes and just tune back into your breath. Find that expansion of the lungs. Bend those arms forward, palms nice and wide, roll forward, tuck the toes, and bring those knees back underneath you. Coming into a nice easy side bend, I want you to peek over one shoulder and try to crunch your hip and shoulder together. Move on a lateral space. We're moving from one side over to the other. Spinal movement back and forth. Inhale, center, exhale for the crunch. It's almost organic. Breathe through center, exhale, squeeze side body. Come back to center, tuck your toes under, and just nice and slow, begin to send your body weight back. See how this feels. Trying to stretch through the arches of your feet. We're going to swing from side to side. Now, if this feels good to you and you're able to tolerate more, the progression is to sit on your heels, right? So I'm going to let my body weight sink. Sometimes you can just come up halfway. Other times you can comfortably sit on your heels, or eventually we work up to that. Wherever you are, in whatever expression, I want you to take a nice breath in. And on the exhale, try to relax your body into your pose. Hands are going to come forward, table position. You can untuck your toes. Balancing table. Extend your right leg back. I'm going to plug the big toe ball mound into the floor. You want to get on the sticky part of your mat so you have something to hold on to with your toes. Typically, we want to be in bare feet, not socks. Push through the heel. Give a nice stretch of the calf. Now navel draws in, so strong core. And then just float back. So I'm rolling on those big toe ball mounds. First part of your balancing table is we're going to float that leg up. Now try not to get that leg too high. The second I lift my leg higher than my hip, I dump into my pelvis and I strain my back. You should look over your shoulder. Toes are pointing towards the floor and you're extending through the heel, squeezing your thigh. Focus on drawing that navel in so we're supporting from a strong center. This is the first phase of your balancing table. The progression is to extend and reach the left arm long. Thumb points to the ceiling, fingers nice and wide. The gaze should be down, so don't look up. Look down, and our goal is to get the ear and the bicep to align. Don't hold your breath. Nice and slow, you can release, hands and knees. Take a couple rounds of that cat-cow. Remember all those teaching points. Drag those hands towards you. As you come into your cow, and press through cat. Neutral spine. Send the left foot back. I'm going to press through the heel. Plug into that floor. Squeeze all the muscles of that left leg, opening up through the calf. While you're in this pose, I want you to look down at your arms. The creases of your elbows should be pointing forward. Lots of times they turn in. For anatomic alignment, we want elbow creases forward. Float right over those hands with your shoulders. And think of that little lever. I'm going to squeeze and engage through the glutes and lift that leg. Even if you could look over your shoulder, are your toes pointing towards the floor? Feeling an inner spiral of your upper thigh. Gaze is down. Draw the navel in. We hold. Option for the progression. Arm comes up, right? Thumb points to the ceiling. Try to get that arm as high as the ear. Shaking is normal here. Just don't hold your breath. Beautiful. Release hand and knee to the floor. You'll want to keep those hips right over the knees. Arms extend forward. This is going to take you into a little prayer or puppy position. Begin to melt the heart to the floor. Forehead may touch. And rather than just dumping through the back, on an exhale, just gently pull the navel in. That's going to bring us more into our thoracic spine. Allow the armpits to sink towards the floor. Exiting your pose, just let your hips sink towards your heels. We're going to take it into our first lunge. So here's where you'll want to grab those blocks. Of course, continue to work with that knee pad. If you're feeling sensitivity, you can always double your mat so you have a little extra support there. Blocks in hand, step your right foot forward. You'll want those blocks underneath your shoulders. A classic error in this position is to do one of these. Now notice my knee is beyond my ankle. We never want this. Typically, you'll want that knee to come right over the ankle, never beyond. Or the blocks are way up here. Bring those blocks underneath your shoulders. Try to sink the hip and square yourself to that short end of the mat. So you may need to pull your right hip back a little bit. The heart is nice and open. Chest is lifted. Actively push your left shin into the floor. This is your low lunge. We can incorporate arms, can come up. So lift the heart to the ceiling. Focus on drawing the navel in. Take a nice full breath in. And on the exhale, hands are going to come onto those blocks, coming into your half split. So this is your Ardha Hamanasana. Ardha means half, Hamanasana means split. So we're in a half split. Focus on pulling the toes towards your face and extending your heart forward. Common error, right? So I want you to check yourself, is curling the tailbone under and trying to round to the knee. Imagine you are wearing a pair of jeans, right? And someone was pulling you right from your belt loop, tailbone towards the ceiling as you extend forward. Our goal here is to feel the whole back of that right leg stretching. Rock through center. Back toe tucks under. Remember where we want this knee to stack right over the ankle. Back toe tucks under. Right? This is going to bring us into a crescent lunge. So hands are going to come together. Arms overhead. Hips are nice and square. Press through your back thigh by squeezing. Opening up behind that kneecap. Breathe in. Exhale to your blocks. We're going to step the left foot maybe a quarter way forward, right? So I have this little pyramid-like position. Both toes primarily are pointing towards the front end of the mat. Same premise, belly to thigh, tailbone lifts. Take that little string on your imaginary belt loop and try to pull it to the ceiling. You could keep a nice flat back. If you wanted to come into more of a passive fold with the upper body, you could relax. Breathe in, half lift. Bend into that right knee, pop your left foot back. Come into your lunge first, maybe lift the heart for a moment. Sinking the hip. Notice what's going on with that right knee. Left comes down, untuck those toes, and pull back. Right is going to come underneath. Knees can come together. Remember that prayer position, right? Stack those Hips right over the knees, arms extend forward, melt to the floor. Here's where you want to check in. Notice any differences between your two sides. Check in with your mind, make sure it's not drifted. Try to stay here with me. Hips sink back to heels. All right, left leg. Hands to block, step that left foot forward and through. Remember, pad that knee. Check your form, right? One of two things usually go wrong here. This or this. Right underneath those shoulders. You want to get the heart lifted. Square those hips to the front. Drop the hip, but lift up from a strong core. So navel draws in. Arms can come overhead. I prefer a steeple of the fingers, really helping me lift up. So think of a back bend, lifting your heart to the ceiling. Actively press your right shin into the floor. Hands to blocks. Half split Ardha Hamanasana. Remember that tailbone is going to lift to the ceiling as you pull back. This is not about how far I fold. You might want to come way up here on your fingertips. If the foot is flexed, toes to your face, and you're dragging the heel towards you, you're going to feel it. So don't worry about the depth of the pose per se. You're looking for sensation. That's our goal. Take a nice breath in. Exhale through center. Coming into that low lunge, the back toes are going to tuck under. I focus on a nice strong leg here, so I'm really squeezing and engaging the muscles of that right thigh. Hands can interlace, come into your crescent position. Hips are still square to the front. Really squeeze and engage the right. Nice full breath. Exhale onto your blocks. We have our mini step. All right, so we come forward maybe halfway, quarter of the way. That's your pyramid expression. Blocks are right underneath your shoulders. Come into your little lift of that tailbone, right? Your belt loop right to the ceiling. Alternatively, you could think of these folding positions like this as your cow pose. So in my cow pose, I'm trying to drop my belly to the floor and lift my tailbone to the ceiling. Option to go a little bit deeper, letting the upper body relax in. I'm up halfway, breathe in. Take that little pop back of the right foot, so shift to the left. Pop to the right, knee comes down. Left meets right. Tuck the toes, hover the knees, come wide. We're coming back into Balasana. Remember, child's pose. Toes together, knees wide, come down. Stack the fists, rest the forehead. Cleansing breath, in and out. Check in, how are you doing? You rise up onto those palms. We're going to take this into a little preparation for our downward facing dog, which is a challenging one. Arms are going to extend out in front of you. Now typically if we reach our hands forward from child's pose, our hands and our feet are in the perfect place for our down dog. From here I want you to try to spin the creases of your elbows forward, right, while I'm holding onto the ground. Easier said than done. And then rock forward. Now as you rock forward, notice my elbow creases are still pointing forward. Tuck the toes and lift the hips just a little bit, right? So I'm going to stay nice and low. Lift your tailbone to the ceiling, just like that little belt loop. Keep your knees bent and try to push your torso to your thighs. This is down dog, right? You can straighten your legs, that's down dog too. Right? If you're just getting started, I want you to maybe hold here and focus on lengthening your spine. As soon as I straighten my legs, there's a tendency to curl the tailbone under and for my head to float forward. Push back, torso to thighs. Lifting your gaze and take a little walk. Come all the way to the front end of the mat. Bend your knees as much as you need here and let your head hang or ragdoll the arms. Shake it out. Your forward fold is Uttanasana. Maybe sway side to side like a little elephant trunk. Put your hands on your calves and lift your gaze. Push your torso away from your thighs. The tailbone is lifted. Take a nice full inhale. Exhale, fold in half. Rise all the way up, hands to the sky. Lift the heart. And bring your hands to Anjali Mudra, which means hands come to heart center, thumb knuckles rest on sternum. Mudra just means hand position. So this is your Anjali Mudra. Close your eyes and just notice how you're feeling. How's your practice going so far? Opening your eyes. We're going to get ready for our most important pose of our practice, which is Tadasana mountain pose. Now, if you have those yoga blocks, I want you to grab one. If you don't have a yoga block, maybe try grabbing a cushion from the couch or a little throw pillow. You'll want to place that block between your thighs. This is going to help us learn how to properly engage our muscles a little better. We want our toes pointing forward and hip distance. So typically hip distance is 1 to 2 fists for most people. We tend to think of hips meaning our flesh, but we really want to focus on bone. So it's a little more narrow than you may expect. Beginning with your foundation, I want you to try to lift your toes here and look for the tripod of your foot. So the big toe ball mound, the outer edge of the foot, and the heels. And even if you wanted to bend down here, you should be able to feel a lifting of the inner arch, and the actual tendon is firmly engaged at the bottom of your foot. Relax your toes. Try not to grip the floor, but keep connection to your tripod. Now I want you to squeeze your block, right? Engaging all the muscles of your legs. You may want to use hands for this. I'm going to put one fist on the navel, just beneath the navel, and one on the sacrum. And I'm just going to try to move my pelvis back and forth. My goal here is to find a neutral pelvis. So I want to extend downward through the tailbone without tucking. We never want to tuck our tailbone. We just want to focus on a lengthening downwards of the back body and a lifting of the front body. So imagine I took a little fish hook and I grabbed the navel center and I lifted it towards the ceiling. From here, release your hands and cup the ribs. Take a nice breath in. And on the exhale, just gently help knit the ribs together. Arms can relax by your sides, palms face forward. Now, this is something that I am guilty of, and many other yoga teachers. We use the term shoulders back and down. And people tend to jam their shoulders down their back. But I want you to get in the habit of learning how to do this action on more of a diagonal action. So as you roll your shoulders down your back, you should take your left shoulder and tuck it into your imaginary right pocket if you're wearing jeans. And then your right shoulder across and down to your left pocket. Now notice the difference on how you can get more opening in the chest. Chin is always parallel to the floor. Right? You want to focus on lengthening from the back of the crown. Sometimes we lengthen from the center of the crown, and notice how when you do that, the chin will lift and you compress the cervical spine. So if you lengthen from the back of the crown, there's a clear difference in that lengthening sensation. Close your eyes, and I want you to feel the intensity of this pose. If I left you here for even just a couple minutes, you should be sweating because everything is working hard to maintain our posture. It should feel as if I'm sliding your body into a straw all the way up into your armpits, and then the shoulders are just relaxed. Opening your eyes. You can remove that block. Why is that pose so important? We look to emulate these elements of Tadasana in all our other poses. Even something like handstand, we still look to find that sense of squeezing through the midline, stacking all our bones. So it is highly overlooked and I think forgotten. Meeting me at the front end of your mat. Inhale the arms up, lift the heart and lift the gaze. Exhale as you fold, place your hands on your blocks. Take it back into that crescent lunge. Right leg is going to step back. Be mindful of where our blocks are in relation to our shoulders, right underneath the shoulders. Once you feel balanced, you could prayer, steeple, or interlace. Coming overhead, you could certainly release your hands here too. Thumbs would be on the outside for that, so we are rotating the biceps. Yogi's choice on that. Squeeze and engage your right thigh. Breathe in. Coming onto those blocks. Getting ready for a transition to Virabhadrasana 2, our Warrior 2 pose. I want you to spin that back heel to the floor and rise up. Let's talk about foundation. You should be able to draw a line from your heel all the way to the middle of your back arch. Squaring yourself to that long end of the mat and sink into your knee. The knee likes to splay in here. We need to energize through the hip and spiral the knee open. So if you looked over your front shoulder, you should see just your big toe, which means we're tracking over the second and third toe. Relax your shoulders, extend your arms. A nice little trick here to get into a nice placement for the upper body is to release your hands to face the ceiling. Shoulder blades are going to slide down your back. Then you could flip your palms and gaze right over the front fingers. We're stacked right over the pelvis. And I want you to feel the strength in your pose. Try to make sure you're engaging through that back leg, keeping the outward spiral of the knee. Breathe in. And on an exhale, take your cartwheel down to your blocks. Spin the back heel, breathe in. Exhale, bring it together. Right meets left. Inhale, come up into your flat back. Lift your gaze, lift your tailbone. Exhale, fold. Rise all the way up, hands up. Tailbone down, heart to the ceiling, baby back bend on that. Exhale, slice yourself in half. Let's try our second side. Left leg kicks back, adjust, right? So you may need to move a bit here, getting those blocks underneath your shoulders. Crescent to start, interlace, steeple. Try to keep those hips nice and square, energize the back leg. So squeezing and extending through that left heel. Breathe in. Exhale, hands down. Spiral the heel, remember our teaching point. So we have heel to middle of back arch alignment. Square yourself up to the long end of the mat, easier said than done. Knee tracks second and third toe. Flip your palms, set your shoulders, and then reach forward with those palms. Our gaze is right over the front fingers. Should feel like a very powerful pose. Breathe in. Exhale, take your spiral. Pivot on that back foot, heel lift, breathe in. Exhale, bring it together. Feet come underneath you. Inhale, flat back, lift the tailbone, lift the gaze. Exhale, release into your fold. And all the way up, hands to the sky. Lift the heart. Anjali Mudra. Thumb knuckles come to rest on the sternum. Close your eyes and just observe change. How are you feeling? We're going to see if we can add on a little bit of balance work for our Warrior 3 pose. Inhale the arms up. Exhale, come onto those blocks. Inhale, lengthen up halfway. Step your right foot back, come into your crescent lunge first. Heart is lifted. Squeeze and engage that back thigh. Working your way into pyramid. Pyramid pose, we come forward maybe a quarter of the way. I'm going to extend upwards and then draw that right foot to the floor. Try to create a nice flat back here, lifting the tailbone. Remember that imaginary belt loop that we have on our jeans here? We're going to lift to the ceiling and try to extend the heart forward. So we're never rounding and curling the tailbone here. It is a lengthening. We should be feeling this all the way up the back of that left thigh. You can opt to take this into a little bit of fold if you choose. As we set up for our Warrior 3, I want you to see if you can find the similarities between this pose and our balancing table that we did earlier. Inhale, come up halfway. The weight will shift to the left foot. The blocks are going to have to travel forward because they want to remain underneath your shoulders. Float your right foot off the floor and flex it. Nice and slow, like a little lever. I want you to lift that leg up as high as the hip. The hips like to splay open here, so try to keep that right hip pointing downwards. You should be able to balance something on my crown, my back, my tailbone, my heel, one straight line. If you feel good, try to release one hand. I suggest reaching behind you. Maybe release with the other if you choose. The progression is arms can come out to the side. or perhaps in front of you when you're ready. To release, hands to blocks. Step all the way back into that lunge. Drop the hip, lift the heart, and feet together. Hold in half. Inhale, lengthen up halfway. On the exhale, second side. Left leg kicks back, come into a nice lunge first. Try to drop the hip, lift the heart. Checking the placement of that knee. Where are your hands? Underneath those shoulders. Pyramid pose, quarter step. You should be able to plant the foot and both toes primarily are pointing forward. Imaginary belt loop lifting to the ceiling. Try to drop the belly to the thigh. Flat back is fine, which actually helps you get more used to that flat back feeling that we look for in Warrior 3. Or you can come into a little bit of a fold here, letting everything go. Try to keep those hips perfectly square to the front end of the mat. And see that pose in your mind's eye before we get there. Hands to blocks, shift your weight to the right foot. Blocks are going to come forward so they remain under your shoulders. There's an inner spiral of that left thigh as you flex the foot, slowly begin to rise. There is a tendency for the torso to dump here, so you want to make sure you're actively pushing away with those blocks, one or both hands, wobbling and shaking, extra credit. Make sure you're not holding your breath. Hands to blocks and step all the way back into that lunge. Take a nice breath in. Feet will come together. Inhale, come up halfway. Exhale, fold in half. You want that baby back bend as you come up. Lift your heart to the ceiling. Extend your tailbone downwards. Heart center and fold in half. As you fold in half, place your hands on the mat. Stepping back, I want you to look for your downward dog. Teaching points. Shake that head yes or no, just relax. Okay, no crinkling in the back of the neck. Bend your knees and try to lift your tailbone towards the ceiling as you push your torso towards your thighs. Option to extend a little further by trying to draw the heels towards the floor without rounding the upper back. Even if you want to lift your gaze here and notice where are the creases of your elbows? Are they pointing at each other? Or can you try to spiral them forward? That is easier said than done. Have your toes walk to touch. Lift your heels and drop your knees wide. Come all the way back into Balasana, that pose of a child. Stack your fists and rest your forehead. Let the work go. Rise up, swing your legs to one side and bring them out in front of you. We've got 2 more active poses and then it's all downhill. We're going to review a Dandasana, staff pose, and I feel like I probably don't do this one enough in my classes. Staff pose is the exact same pose as Tadasana, our mountain pose, only we're bent in half, so this way we can begin to see the similarities in our poses. You'll place a block between your thighs, same as we did with our mountain. Focus on your feet, right? We want to focus on that spreading and engaging through our feet. So pressing through the heels, we have our big toe ball mound and our outer edge of the foot active. Squeeze your block with your thighs. Think of lifting up and out of the pelvis, lower ribs knit together, shoulder blades, back and across, chin parallel to the floor. I just want you to close your eyes and feel this pose, all right? So it's the same as our Tadasana. If I left you here for the rest of our practice, you'd be in a full-on sweat. Just appreciate the intensity of the pose. Breathe in. Exhale, open your eyes, relax. I want you to keep your block there, but scoot back so you can find the floor with your feet. Rock it back and forth. You want to get onto those sit bones. We're going to review Navasana, which is boat. Round your tailbone. So we're going to give a little curl to the tailbone and see if you could find balance here. So I'm just going to float. There's a tendency for people's knees to really splay open here, which is why we're squeezing our block. Relax the shoulders. If you feel like you can balance and release your hands, you can hold here. There's a curling of the tailbone, but I'm also trying to lift my sternum a little bit. Make sure you're not holding your breath. You might find a little bit of shaking here. That's just a bonus. Give it one more inhale. Feet to the floor, sit up nice and tall. You can remove that block. Curl the tailbone under, and nice and slow, roll yourself down to the back. Try to use those abdominals. As you release to the floor, knees will come into the chest. Take a squeeze. Hard work is over. Gentle rock from side to side. One hand on each knee, and just try to take a nice, slow, circular turn right around the sacrum. Reverse. Come back to center, give a nice squeeze in with those knees into the chest. And place your feet on the floor. Just adjust your hips in case you feel crooked. Left leg is going to come up and over with a flexed foot. I want you to take this into pigeon. So from here you could push the thigh open, see how this feels. If you feel like you can go deeper, you can draw into a bind. I'm going to interlace my hands behind that thigh or in front of the shin. But if you're straining your neck or your shoulders to get up here, you'll want to scale back a bit. Explore the pose by just gently rocking a little over to that right side as you try to extend your left hip away from your shoulder. You want to be able to close your eyes here and just sink into sensation. Come back to center and reset with a little lift of the hips. Flexing the right foot as you come up and over, right? Pressing from here or taking the bind if you choose. It's more important that we extend the right hip away than take the bind. So hip away from shoulder. Just gently explore the pose as you rock to the left. Picking up on one side, maybe tighter than the other. On that next exhale, push the right hip a little further away from you. Release your pose. As you come back to central, you'll want to lift and lower your hips. Knees will come into the chest, arms extend out to the side. Coming into a twist, fall to the right first. Now if you notice your left shoulder is lifting off the ground, place your right hand on your left thigh and use this as a counterbalance. Push the leg into your hand and notice how you can root the left shoulder. Look to the left as you settle into your pose. Close the eyes, if not already. Just take some time to observe the breath while we're here. How it can travel up and into the left lung. A twisting and wringing action as you exhale. Pull those knees back into center. Lift and lower your hips just to realign the pelvis. Arms out to the side as you take your twist to the left. Remember, we want that counterbalance, especially if the shoulder's lifting. Press your leg into your hand. Close the eyes. After completing that next exhale, begin to transition onto your back. Take that little lift and lower just to realign the pelvis. We'll get ready for that final pose of practice, Shavasana, where we want to let our body totally relax. The legs can extend long, the feet will naturally turn out, and the palms face the ceiling by your sides. To release the low back, some prefer to tent the knees, feet as wide as the mat, knees collapse into each other. Closing the eyes, feel the shoulders melt into the floor, the muscles become soft and liquid. Let your mind drift. For the breath to soften and feel natural and smooth. And feel completely supported by the ground beneath you. Call back just the mind. Keep the eyes closed. Notice where your mind was. Begin to awaken by just gently tapping your thumb to each finger. And then back again. Wiggling the toes. Gently rock your head from side to side. Just try to massage the scalp with the floor. Keeping your eyes closed as you make your transition, begin to roll to one side. Pausing just for a moment in a fetal pose. Press into palms, ease up to a comfortable seat. Remembering how we started practice, sit up nice and tall, palms face the ceiling. Close your eyes. Hands will come to heart center with your humble bow forward. Acknowledge any changes or shifts in the mind or body. And remembering it takes courage to show up on your mat. I am humbled to be here with you. Opening your eyes. Use this practice to help you get more confident in your poses and get more acquainted with your mat. Hopefully I will see you soon. If you've enjoyed this content, consider giving it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I love the opportunity for me to just be here, working with you and watching the channel grow. There's the giantest truck outside.